Okay, we're live and good afternoon. This podcast number 830. Audiences hate political activism, not political art. That's an interesting title, and I think that's a good way to break it down when you're talking about media, how we read media these days. Whenever we read it from less well-developed authors, let's just say, and they come across as if they're on a soapbox half the time, and they're trying to shove something down your throat, and everyone's like, what the hell is this crap? Where'd this come from? And let's be clear, it's not about politics. It's about just ham-fisted writing that doesn't belong. So people can pick up on that very quickly, and I think this channel is about that. I don't even know who this guy is. Let's find out. His name is Master Samwise, and this came out a month ago, has 200,000 views. Good for you, sir. And very healthy upvote ratio, 14,000 to barely over 100 downvotes. That's great. So I'm expecting a good video because this sounds like an intelligent title, and I think he seems to know what he's talking about. I don't know.
I would add to that. Political activism leads to bad writing. I'd say that's almost always the case.
If you talk about like 1984 or Atlas Shrugged or like the ones that have a warning message. Yeah, there are definitely some bad writing moments. You could say Atlas Shrugged has multiple because pretty much Ayn Rand was just preaching half the time. But yeah, it does lend itself to, this is an important book. This is one of those works you're going to remember for the rest of your life, but it wasn't written in the best way, especially when you start combining it with like romance and drama and
of course, I would make a further distinction between presenting your own philosophy wrapped in a story versus blatant propaganda.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Even with Atlas Shrugged, as beautiful as you might think John Galt's speech was, it was like 2 chapters long. Like he just stood there while America's crumbling, and he's going to give the answer, and he just keeps talking. You're like, okay, Anne or Ein, get on with it. Like, we get the message. We understand. We understood the message before he opened his mouth, because there's this beautiful scene where he says, "Get the hell away from me." It's like, yeah, and she even acknowledges that's the perfect message right there. But then he actually talks. And it's just, you're sitting there for, a few hours reading this.
The explanation of what this one line means.
Yeah, like, because that's the whole freedom of commerce. Like, you just get out of my way, let me do my job, you do your job, and we're all happy. That's like, get the hell out of my way is the perfect summation for what John Galt represented. And if you look at 1984, that's more of a horror story of what he perceived as the end result of all this government control could be or become.
Oh yeah, it's a proper science fiction / philosophy story that explores an idea and brings it to its ultimate conclusion.
And I would say it is preachy, but in an appropriate contextual way, because the characters are all bright. Like, it's a sad ending. It's obviously a very bleak story, but that's the point. It's kind of like, this is where this ends up. So it's like, okay, you get a pass with that, 1984. I understand that. So yeah, there are good forms of preaching when that's the point. The whole point of that story is to scare you. You go, listen, this is bad. And I don't know how. I could show you all the historical films and tapes and records of what war has brought, or I'm going to tell you a science fiction story in the future of America, of not just America, but the world, where everything is messed up, and there's a clear passage how we got there, or not a clear passage, but there's a prison-like environment where there's no escape for anyone, for anything.
Yeah. Well, we call that North Korea.
Yeah.
I love the idea how BioShock does this very thing with libertarianism.
Oh yeah.
Brought to the ultimate conclusion.
Yeah, when you think about it, they could have done homesteading. They could have done something on the moon. They could have done anything, and the message would still be the same. The setup would still be the same. How crazy is Andrew Wright? I'm going to build a city on the moon. You're like, okay, buddy.
Yeah, But the thing, but the great thing about that is he has built this amazing, this impossibly expensive project. This got this society started, and it worked pretty well for pretty long. But then even you, the very agent that he knows only exists to kill him, he gives you a speech, gives you the weapon to kill him with, and still insists that you do have a free choice.
Yeah, it's very similar to...
He was wrong, but he has this amazing belief.
It's very, I wouldn't say very similar, but similar to what the DC world did with the metahuman problem of their universe, or their particular universe in that one instance, where all of a sudden we have superheroes and then we have metahumans, and then there's this big war about who's in charge and who's in control, who has the authority, who is the law. And with BioShock, that was the new thing, that was the new fad, and everyone was getting pumped up, full of superpowers. So, and everyone just kept getting more, and they kept wanting more. It became a drug, became addicted, not literally addicted, but psychologically. So that by itself is fascinating. It doesn't have to be superpowers; it could be just a normal drug, like with Brave New World.
Considering what some drugs do, they are equivalent to low-tier superpowers. Like with amphetamines giving you hyperfocus.
Yep.
Hey.
Or even barbiturates. Same, like your brain just gets turned off and you could focus on one part. Yeah, same idea. All right.
What was that movie? Not Layer Cake. There wasn't...
Layer Cake?
I watched it at the same time. Was Layer Cake and another one that I watched at the same time. And it had this drug that was actually perfect. That would really up you to your highest potential. But in the beginning, for most of the movie, it did have a downside, and it was super rare. But all the people who ran the world were on this drug. And so basically the only way to get into that circle was to get a hold of that drug.
Interesting.
I have to look up what movie that was. Maybe someone in chat remembers. Yeah, but all of this is exploration of ideas. And that is different from propaganda material that just tells you it's propaganda to be the thing that you must submit to. Ayn Rand doesn't tell you that you have to submit to this, only that this is my idea, I think this would be better.
Yeah, she has a lot of soapbox moments. That's the only problem I have with the story. The story itself is not that exciting. I think they made a movie or a miniseries out of it. Yeah. I didn't watch it. It was it doesn't translate very well.
You know what also does this? The second Dune trilogy.
Yeah.
Really, really bad.
Yeah, don't
read that.
Stay with the first 3 books. Stop.
Yeah.
You're good. Okay, anyway, let's get started. Here is Vladimir Dragunov leaving a super chat for no reason. Thank you, sir. And is it on the topic? Let's find out. Okay, here we go. It's like we're writing in 4chan. Be North Korea soldier in Ukraine. Okay. Have unfiltered access to the internet for the first time. Immediately get addicted to porn. That's great.
Yep, that happened, or is happening right now.
Starlink, you're like, oh my god.
They're also defecting really fast because, hey, they're out of the prison.
Yeah. Oh, what a crazy idea. Join the military to be even more ensconced in the regime and then get transported to another country and just leave.
Well, being in the military is one way to get food.
That's true.
It's really bare bones over there.
Yeah. All right. Anyway,
I can empathize.
We are at 16 minutes. Here we go.
Imagine, dear viewer, that you are writing the script for a major movie or television show, one that will be seen by millions.
Oh, by the way, I think the second season of that League of Legends animation just is coming out today on Netflix.
Oh.
Yeah.
Let's hope it's not woker than the last.
Yeah. Well, the last one was pretty awesome, but...
Well, it kept back the crap.
No, it was okay.
I just wasn't happy about the ugly stick that they hit the women with.
Yeah, well, it's the animation style,
Of people of them teenagers or even children. You are tasked with bringing to life the characters whose stories will portray the themes of the narrative, with ensuring that your audience will relate to and be inspired by said characters. And you also happen to care deeply about a completely unrelated political issue. What do? You hold in your hand this enormous power, the ability to ensure that your opinion reaches countless potentially impressionable minds around the globe. Could you possibly resist the temptation to inject your political beliefs into the story which you are writing? That's impossible! If you answered yes, congratulations on having integrity and understanding what your theoretical job actually entails. There is a long-running debate, or rather internet shouting match.
That was a weird zoom in. This guy kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you guys ever watched THX 1138. Everyone in there is bald, but that was George Lucas's first film.
It was a student film. It was one of the first dystopian movies I ever saw. And it's good. It's really good. It shows that man has really great potential, and I wish he had retained more of that.
Yeah, if he had that same... Well, this was like the 70s, like the early 70s. Like he really was into the science fiction movements back then, and it felt like reading a short story or a novella in that vein, and he made it into a film. Like, that's amazing. And it's weird if you don't know sci-fi or science fiction from the 70s, but wow, what an interesting film. Loved it. Anyway, this
great effects too already.
Yeah, all the little cars and all the little lights. It was fantastic. The giant.
I wish he had that level of quality, not for effects, but for writing, for atmosphere, for the prequel trilogy.
Well, he has amazing sets, so it doesn't matter whether the setting looks good. It's really about the plot and the characters and how that jives. So I think
that's what I mean.
His camera eye is very good. I think even in those films. Anyway, this is what this guy reminds me of.
Not politics belong in movies, shows, video games, and so forth. Some people say, keep your politics off my art, while others insist that all art is political, or that stories like Star Wars have always been political, backed up with evidence such as this George Lucas interview.
I want to figure out how democracies give themselves over to tyrants.
Any human with the slightest concept of nuance will of course detect a significant difference between what good old George is describing and the random off-the-cuff politically charged one-liners such as these.
Elf workers, taking your trains!
I can't have my choice, Mom.
Oh,
The
no.
former is political art. The latter is political activism injected into and posing as art. There is a substantial difference between
propaganda.
worlds created with their own political and social systems and heavy-handed political messaging that was clearly squeezed into the script because whoever wrote the line probably got into a Twitter argument earlier that morning and needed to vent.
First of all, you will never be me.
What Lucas did in the prequels was explore an idea, and perhaps to get his audience, if they cared to think about it, to explore that idea as well. And while the prequels are hardly universally adored, it's safe to say the criticisms of those movies focus more on the quality of the writing than they do on the political themes. Coincidentally enough, and I do believe it was a coincidence, the prequels came out right around the start of the War on Terror, an event that precipitated unprecedented amounts of power being granted to the executive branch.
That's just good timing. I don't think specifically that was why he came out with those films.
Yeah, because there were the whole Star Wars story is an allegory to the whole Nazis coming to power.
Yeah, I know. Even
It's
the
the whole Weimar Republic to Nazi Germany.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of like the story of episode 1 to 3 is really nothing special in terms of politics. It's just like, okay, we want to protect ourselves. Oh, how do we do that? We get an army. How do we do that? We get someone in charge. Well, how do we do that? We put the guy in charge of the Senate to be in charge of the military. And you're like, okay, fine. And then there's no checks and balances. There's no people. There's no oversight. There's no like transition of power. No, it's just the guy.
Yeah, it's more simplistic that he just has the emergency powers and that's it. While in the Weimar Germany example with Hitler, it worked. It was a bit more complicated. It's just simplified down to emergency laws, but overall, it's the same idea, with the difference that no, there was not another army also controlled by Hitler to scare the Germans so that they would build their army. That didn't happen. But it's a really good plot. Just not in especially in the movies. That is not really addressed at all. Which is a pity, because that is where it's actually really interesting.
Yeah, so the political element really wasn't espoused by George, I don't think, in the prequels, and that was more or less a backdrop because he wanted to tell the tale of Darth Vader, and even that people were criticizing. Well, the story isn't there, the character's not there, the dialogue's not there, the plot's not there. It's like, yeah, I guess there was a political bent to it, but there wasn't much to work with. The biggest thing we got in episode 3 was the controversy between the rules of the Jedi and what they were asking Anakin to do, and that to me was still the only major conflict in the story aside from all the actual war.
Yeah, I would say what the Star Wars example brings is not politics in a movie, but rather there are politics happening, and they drive the movie, they drive the plot, but it is more in the sense of intrigue. It's not about this or that ideology. It's not about ideology. It's there's intrigue happening. The same way that Game of Thrones is run on intrigue, as well as most soap operas. I
like the same. Yeah, I still see it as a soap opera. The same way I see The West Wing. People say it's a political drama. I watched I think the majority, if not all, of the seasons. And yes, there are some political arguments. There are definitely issues between this congressman and that person, but for the most part, it's a soap opera. It's a drama between people working in an office, and then sometimes the president walks in and he talks about religion or whatever. You're like, that's fine, but it's not a political drama. Political dramas are when you have a ideology or some sort of bill or some sort of like, we gotta have a big safety net, and then we argue that, and then that's the discussion. That is the political drama, as opposed to, let's say, a legal drama where it's a court case where it's very clean cut of who's doing what and what's the process. So I can't think, because no one wants to watch a bunch of senators from Rome argue about taxes. It's kind of boring. You can try to make that a drama or a comedy, I guess, but it's really not. Like, Shakespeare didn't really talk about that when he did all his stories, especially with Henry the series, the Henry the Sixth, the Seventh, whatever. He never really went too much into politics. It was mostly the people behind it that the drama was about. So I've yet to find an actual political story about legislation, and it would have to be like some sort of retelling of a documentary. Like if someone did a story of Trump's life, for example, that would be a political drama, because it's all about people suing someone else, passing laws, breaking laws, executive decisions.
How would you classify Wag the Dog?
That's like news. That's like, I guess that would be political in a certain sense, because that is how to spin a story, not necessarily how the Congress fights for the bill, because it's too.
It's more. It's about the mechanics of everything.
Yeah. It's how the story gets out and what happens and who affects that and who cares. So yeah, no, I just can't see it being exciting the way that a gladiatorial arena would be exciting. It's just not the same form of drama, and it's hard to sell. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is something out there that people like. I just haven't seen it yet. Anyway.
To the United States government.
Coincidence? I think not!
But did any of you notice that? Because I sure didn't. For one thing, because George W. Bush, unlike Palpatine, did not stay in power for the next 30 years. And for another, because the politics of the prequels belonged in...
What's with the zoom-ins? I'm getting...
This is important. But the thing with Bush was that he laid the foundation for the United States turning into a surveillance state and the uniparty tyranny.
Yeah.
That was the point. The people who want to create that have learned from the follies of the last century and they want to repeat the follies of the last century, but that they have learned that they have to do it step by step, slowly boiling the frog. They can't do it in a big instantaneous way because that riles people up too much, and that is just too much of a hassle. So they rather do it slowly and passive aggressively. The other thing is that around the same time, no, was it from this? It started with around 2001, I believe. Was the comic series Transmetropolitan. The interesting thing about that one was that it predicted Obama, but the character in the story was a white president. And he was called the Smiler, and he smiled exactly like Obama, and he did exactly the same things that Obama did.
All right.
They fit there. They were not that ensured everyone would understand the metaphor, because George Lucas was, first and foremost, a world builder and a storyteller. He cared more about what his audience would get out of his movies than how much of himself he put in. And that legacy of his lives on in Andor, whose plot is undeniably political, and yet Tony Gilroy clearly had no intention of trying to impose his own opinions on hot-button social issues. Rather, he wanted to explore how autocracies establish and maintain power, and how their actions may produce the very thing they intend to suppress, all told through the...
Yeah, by the way, have you finally watched Andor?
No, I haven't had time the past 2 months because of changing my carrier, and that was all kinds of setup, and I have to return hardware and all this junk. And the TV is great, like the signal's fantastic. So, I haven't had time to sit back and just watch TV.
Okay.
It's been
do enjoy once you get to it.
Yeah, my dad has watched the first season. I think he enjoyed it. So, I mean, if he likes
I'm surprised that they considered actually greenlighting a second one now.
Oh, cool.
All told through the lens of the people experiencing that struggle on the ground level.
Authority is brittle. Oppression is the mask of fear.
People can draw whatever parallels they want to our modern world and political systems, and I'm sure they have. But Andor is clearly missing any of the condescending, sanctimonious quote-unquote lessons that so many other properties have tried to impart upon their audiences. Unless you count fascism is bad, I suppose, but that's pretty universally agreed upon to be true. The two sides of the aisle just can't seem to agree who the fascists actually are. And that's about as politically charged a statement as you'll hear me make on this channel. Because although these videos are largely made by me and me alone, I do try to focus them on a particular theme: why stories matter. I do put myself into the scripts, it's unavoidable, but I am not the product. I don't teach the lessons, I don't inspire or influence. The stories do, the characters do. My analyses are, ideally, merely a vessel through which, I hope, my viewers can better understand and appreciate the works of men and women who are far more talented than I am. Which brings me back to a point I made a moment ago about Lucas caring more about his audience getting something out of Star Wars than he did about putting himself into that world. This is what storytellers should aspire to do, because it shows that they care more about the experience of the watchers, readers, or players than they do about feeling satisfied with themselves. Now, it's obviously impossible to tell.
It's a zoom in and a quick zoom out.
Why are you so enamored with that technique?
It's like you don't have just speak, just talk. We can see you're enthusiastic. We're focusing only on your face anyway. When you keep going closer and closer, it's like I'm bending over, looking at the screen closer and closer. I can see into your nose. Like, stop it! Like, you don't need to go this far.
It's smart. He's increasing the intensity.
Yeah. Why doesn't he bend forward and look in the camera more like a crazy person? Oh, God, this is creepy.
A story, something of yourself into it. Your worldview will obviously influence the tale you tell or the way in which you craft that narrative. However, do you have a philosophy which you want to elucidate? Do you have a theme which you want to explore? Do you have characters whose journeys and arcs will inspire or serve as cautionary tales? Are you writing this story for people you hope will love it and cherish it? Or because you want to hear it? Because you have something to say, and damn it, someone had better listen.
What would you say?
That was a double zoom in. That was a zoom in with a pause.
That was good. I like that edit.
Okay.
Because he was punching the activism intensity there.
Yeah.
That was good.
Say,
you do here?
The answer to that last question is naturally the most important one. When we get moments like this,
There's only one business in the galaxy that'll get you this rich.
War.
they are rarely well integrated into the story.
Yeah, because it completely broke law, because nobody is selling TIE fighters to the Imperium. They're building them themselves, that's why they're so cheap. They're cheap productions from massive factories.
Well, this is
And nobody's selling X-Wings to the rebels.
we don't even have to go.
They're donations.
We don't even have to go that far with the dialogue. We can just say the entire escapade to Canto Bight was a gigantic waste of whatever it was supposed to be, plot-wise, character-wise, story-wise. Like, nothing about it mattered. So everything that is said and done on Canto Bight was pointless. And what they talk about dogs later on, like they're not free, or like all this stuff is nonsense. So
Horse aliens.
yeah, horse dogs, whatever they're called. So it's like, yeah, he's right, but so is everything else in the whole setting is just a waste.
And at the same time, it diminishes the power of the Imperium, the Empire, because if it was such a horrible empire that controls everything, why are these rich people free, and why didn't the Empire just seize all their assets?
Yeah, it's like, oh, you make this stuff. Why would we give you money when we can just take it from you and then kill you and then own your factories? It's like, okay.
Yeah. That's how the Nazis did it.
It's like,
the actual ones.
Let me buy your guns. Let me use the guns to hold you ransom, and then let me kill you with the guns I bought from you, and then take your stuff. It's like, what the hell?
Jar the viewer out of their immersion in the narrative, which is antithetical to the very art of storytelling. Why is this being brought up now? Does it have any impact on the world or the plot? No. For one thing, it's an idiotic statement, since this war to which Rose refers is, well, this. And obviously there are a gazillion other ways.
Donk, donk. It's like you're underwater and you're tapping on a submarine. It's like donk, donk.
To obtain ridiculous levels of wealth in the Star Wars galaxy. For another, it simply isn't ever relevant again, except perhaps when Benicio del Toro's character tells Finn that the weapons dealer sells ships to the good guys and the bad, and how rich exactly could anyone get selling X-Wings to the Not Rebellion? They have like 20 of them. Anyway, point being that inserting some convoluted point about the military-industrial complex being corrupt and uncaring about good and evil simply wasn't worked into the story. It wasn't a plotline that was explored, it didn't provide any meaningful character growth, it just appeared to be on someone's mind while they were writing Finn and Rose's highly unnecessary scenes, and somehow got included in the final edit. As another example, let's rewind to the Make Numenor Great Again speech, which is another beat that feels like it was forced into the narrative as a random political potshot, because that's exactly what it was. No Numenorian was worried about an elf stealing his blacksmithing business. Some of the men of Numenor were jealous of the elves' immortality and closeness to the Valar, but to twist that distaste of theirs into a year-specific gripe because you just have to try and score some political points is just plain silly.
Oh, that was like zoom, zoom, zoom per word. Whoa.
Yeah.
Just plain silly.
Yes, it's how you would put a period between the words to emphasize. It's great.
Maybe you could rotate the camera so it goes one like 20 degrees to the left and then like 40 degrees to the right and then back to 30 degrees.
No. I think he's fine not overdoing it. I think he knows what he's doing and he stays grounded.
Okay.
With this.
Message injections like this absolutely scream, my opinion on this issue is more important.
No, he's doing this way too much. This is like every time.
Oh, come on. It's his one comedic element.
Comedic? This is all he's doing with the frickin' timeline.
Yeah,
my face is on the screen. Gotta zoom in. Like, okay.
You're only mucking about this because there's nothing else to muck
That's
about.
where you're wrong.
Which is a good sign.
Here's the problem, though. Any storyteller is saying something with his or her story. If you're not, your story isn't worth telling. And while I generally think a good rule is to adhere to universal truths when you are crafting the themes for your stories, there isn't always...
Okay, I mean, he's right, but universal truths. It's like, okay, love and are they idioms? Like, are they adages? Like, what are you going for here? Is it just general truths? Like, okay, it's true. Like,
it is a general truth that the Numenorian elves are stealing our jobs.
Okay. Sure. I don't know. Like, love conquers all. Like, good things. Listen to your parents. Like, all right. Yeah.
Love gets us our jobs back.
Yeah.
Exactly complete agreement among humankind as to what those universal truths are. Any belief about anything can be challenged, can be considered controversial, and thus political. If you don't like The Last Jedi, which I don't, and think that Admiral Holdo was a terrible leader,
I like him.
which I do, you will likely want to back up that opinion. And to do so, you might examine the potential motivation of the writers.
But that's a big gray box. You don't want to go there. Like, whatever Ryan Johnson says,
you
like,
could.
You could, but it's like, I don't really care what he says. He's crazy. It doesn't matter. What
But look, his entire ideology is crazy and contradictory, garbled nonsense. And that is why The Last Jedi is just that. It's just an assortment of scenes duct taped together. Just like all the triple A woke trash that we are getting this year. Like Veilguard, it's just duct tape garbage of leftovers. What were the other? Bayonetta 3 was duct tape garbage that was just scrambled together in a couple months probably, when it had a development time of 5 years.
Nice.
And there's so many more examples of these green-purple games that are all like that, and they make no sense. It's just random duct tape garbage. It's actual chaos.
Well,
it's a manifestation of chaos.
We're halfway done. This is a pretty good video, aside from the funny zoom-ins for me. But yeah, he's saying every good generic good thing that, like, I mean, attacking The Last Jedi is easy, so it's not hard to talk about that again. But in general, yeah, he showed some good examples of what doesn't work and why.
As they did, and you might conclude that she was likely placed on that bridge because she's a woman who doesn't look like most people's idea of an admiral, and Ryan Johnson wanted to subvert our expectations by having her take charge and shut down Flyby Poe. Is that conclusion which I reached an inherently
Flyby Poe? Flyboy Poe? I don't know. Maybe he said that wrong. I'm not sure.
I think it was supposed to be a pun on the plot.
Flyby Poe. All right. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, because he destroyed the big Star Destroyer in flyby maneuver, basically.
Okay. All right.
Political one. Well, let's look at the premises that I believe enjoys subverting audience expectations. And Disney, perhaps Hollywood in general, want to place women in traditionally male-dominated roles. The first premise isn't remotely political. Obviously. It's merely an opinion on Johnson's style of writing and directing, one that is quite widely shared. The second, however, is the promotion of women, the propping up, some might say, a political issue. Short answer, not really, but yes. Long answer, it isn't inherently, but it is, because just about anything to do with any type of identity one might claim has been swept up into the political realm. Thinking that...
That's good. That's a good way of putting it. I like that short answer.
Yeah, it's not a good thing, but it's well put.
Yeah, it's a good. Like he's speaking very matter-of-factly in a very easy way for anyone to understand without going into jargon. I appreciate that.
A disastrously bad leader, and that the movie treating her as if she was in the right all along, and thinking that she was given a pass because of her gender, is not a political opinion, but rather a social one. However, we tend to conflate the two. I've done so several times in this script. Picking a side in a social argument must mean that you're on the same side as the majority of people who agree with you. And so many people, maybe most people, will assume a great deal about your political beliefs if you think that way.
Yeah, that's pretty silly when you have all kinds of stories, especially in games these days, where you can play the villain or the bad guy or whatever. So, yeah, if they pigeonhole a writer to always do a certain ending or a certain villain a certain way, then you go, oh, yeah, he's just writing that same story over again. As opposed to...
The main thing they do is then to put it in some form of, the bad guy is actually the good guy. And when you do that 90% of the time, it gets very annoying.
Yeah, it depends, because I remember everyone's talking about Dragon Age, or the original Dragon Age Origins was just the biggest fantasy tropes ever, just slammed together, minus a few that are popular, like vampires. They didn't have any of that. So like,
but well done.
Yeah, but
Well
everyone, like, imagine you had like 10 writers in a room. They all wanted to do a thing, and they all got the chance to do that, and they did it well. Like that's the kind of thing that happened with the original game. And comparing it to other things, it's just like I think of the Pathfinder world. It's just slammed everything together in Pathfinder, which has a game system on top of it, which arguably is better than D&D. I don't know the comparisons.
It is basically an upgrade from D&D 3.5. It takes all that has, and then sorts it, orders it, and develops on it systematically.
Right.
And it's made by the same people who made all the expansion content to the basic Dungeons and Dragons 3.
Yeah, and the
they
lore...
They ran the Dungeons and the Dragons magazine, which are 2 magazines.
So the lore is so diverse and complex that when they came out with the video game versions of the 2, it's so like you can be evil. It's no problem. You could be really evil. Like even the evil people look at you like you're freaking psycho. Like it's so you can go so far in one direction, and they allow you to do that, and they allow you to build a castle in your image, and it's just so crazy. Whether you want to be a lich or a devil or a demon, there's all these opportunities, and it all works out. It all makes sense within the context of who would go against you, who would join you, and why, and how that would work, and why. Like it's just so much was put into. Do you want to go this route? Then we'll tell that story. Do you want to go that route? Well, we have to make like they thought it through narratively, while allowing the game to do all this, the rule sets and the mythic paths.
It's the so far penultimate choose your own adventure.
I'm still playing the game today. Like I keep replaying it. It's just so many things I haven't done yet.
And yet you don't watch Andor.
It's I'm not into TV, honestly, unless my cousins come by or I go over there and I watch whatever they're watching, which may be Disney Plus, it may be Andor.
It's just several 1-hour movies, basically.
Yeah, I know.
It's like as if The Hobbit was properly made as a mini series.
If I had a TV when I was working out, I'd probably do that. I'd work out and watch TV. I could do that.
Yeah, you have a PC. You can watch it on the computer.
It depends on how my head is angled, I guess. Yeah. Anyway.
Or they'll make the opposite assumptions if you think she was justified in acting as she did. I mean, I've heard a gaming YouTuber talk about how he basically became a Republican temporarily after watching The Last Jedi because he hated it, because it's a bad movie. And the only people on the internet who also seemed to hate it were guys like Ben Shapiro. This is what happens when modern-day political hot takes or social issues are inserted into stories.
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with Ben Shapiro as a... he's just a guy on the internet. Like, there's nothing to do with the argument at hand. So
it has to do with the fact that the lore of that movie broke everything.
Yeah, anyone could see that. So it doesn't mean if even if Ben was a left-leaning fellow, he's smart enough to know that something's wrong with the story. So
Ben Shapiro just laser eyes everything that remotely looks left-wing.
I guess. I don't know. I don't really.
He over his pattern recognition is oversensitive, and he also pushes doctored images for pity points, which completely destroyed his reputation in my eyes.
All right, we are zipping through this video. It's great. It's a great video. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
That are loved by a massive audience from both sides of the narthex and the transepts. And if you're thinking,
what? Let me rewind that.
Watching The Last Jedi because he hated it, because it's a bad movie. And the only people on the internet who also seemed to hate it were guys like Ben Shapiro. This is what happens when modern-day political hot takes or social issues are inserted into stories that are meant to be loved by a massive audience from both sides of the aisle, as well as from the narthex and the transepts.
Narflex and the transepts?
I am not familiar with those terms.
Is that a
he
fantasy
probably
term?
tried to make a pun, but I don't get it. Sorry,
yeah.
I'm not smart enough.
I don't know what a narflex and a transept is. I couldn't tell you. All right, yeah, I'm confused, but he made good points till that one sentence.
Sam, are you saying studios aren't supposed to have any women of power or authority or influence so as to not provoke the chuds, the incels, and whatever other idiotic insult is being thrown around Reddit this month? Then I have a video that you might...
Okay.
Yes.
I don't know what the third one is. I don't know what the second and the last ones are. The 90% and the 89%, I'm not sure what those... Oh, is that based off the manga, All You Need Is Kill. Edge of Tomorrow? Is that what that one is?
It could be Edge of Tomorrow. There's an exosuit. It's so long that I watched that movie.
I've never seen it, but the manga, I know what it's based off. What's the bottom right one then?
That might be Hunger Games, maybe? Which I never saw.
Then what's the third one from the top?
The third one from... That could be the Peter Pan but Wendy.
Oh my god, they did that?
Yeah, they did that.
When was that?
It was a total bomb.
Yeah, I never heard of it. I never heard of that film. Why would you have...
Yeah, we made fun of it for 5 minutes and then forgot about it.
Oh god. I could not tell you. I've never heard of it. Wow. Interesting.
Seriously, I wish someone would watch this video already. It's been really underperforming. At the same time, however, yes, if you want to succeed as a business, you should absolutely cater to your audience.
Are you not entertained? I know more than you.
If you don't like your customers and want to change them, become a therapist, not a screenwriter. If your thought process is, our core audience won't like this, but we know better than they do, so we're going to include...
A good therapist, a really good therapist, could probably write a good script as well.
Yeah, they're not stupid.
Yeah, because they know how people function. Bad therapists don't. Bad therapists are the reason people need therapists. Or at least one reason.
It anyway for their...
Sorry.
To include it anyway for their own good, your product is going to fail and will be swept aside by stories that actually play to the crowd. If you want proof, let's look at the biggest box office hits of this year. Inside Out 2, a family movie with absolutely nothing preachy and no divisive social issues presented. Deadpool and Wolverine, by all accounts just a lot of dumb superhero fun. Despicable Me 4, wait, really? They're still making those? Anyway, no message or politics as far as I can tell. Dune Part 2, not exactly lacking in politics, but said politics are of Dune's world.
Yeah, because it's still in the first trilogy. Oh god. They will never go beyond book 3. Never, ever.
I don't think...
Never, ever.
I don't think a producer would even try.
Because and that's also because in the first trilogy, the stuff the real Frank Herbert, who still wrote them, writes is mostly, it's like I would say 98% profound. He knew what he was writing about.
Yeah.
In regards to consciousness, to politics, to philosophy. He knew his stuff. With religion, he was that's where his fantasy elements came in, because he invented this complete amalgamation of stuff. But in the second trilogy, right with book 4, where Leto the second is talking over everybody, and nobody gets a word in, so nobody even finishes a sentence but him. That's just complete garbage. That's nonsense. That's like using words wrong and everything. And that from the character who effectively has the knowledge of God, because he is one, prescient and see into the future, basically, as well as has the memory of all his ancestors down to the caveman level. So he should know what he's talking about, but he isn't.
Well, I like the fact that Herbert was influenced by the war in Iraq and Saudi Arabia and the war for oil, and he turned that into a science fantasy futuristic scenario where it's just the same conflict, just in a different skin, with all kinds of interesting lore and characters and guilds and spanning the galaxies.
True, but he was less inventive than people attribute to him, because they're not bringing the sources together where he took things from for his inspiration, which is the worm, for example, is a direct reference to the snake in the Garden of Eden, because when it is cast down by God, it is cursed to always crawl on its belly and eat earth. So it is turned down into a worm, effectively. It becomes a worm. And the name of the worms is in Dune is Shai-Hulud or Shaitan, which is the Arabic word for the devil. So, and what does the snake offer you? The fruit of prescience, in this case, the spice. It gives you the fruit of wisdom.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So Dune is the Garden of Eden destroyed by the snake. And everybody wants the bloody apple.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful, simple influence that as soon as you learn that, you're like, oh, this is, someone was going to make this eventually. And once you connect the dots, you're like, oh yeah, this is cool. This is a smart way of putting things together. It's not the most creative way of doing it. There's lots of different ways. But the fact that he made it about science fiction, traveling the stars, like how crazy idea is that? That's how, even when writers read the original books, you're like, okay, I see where you're going with this in the 70s and how that connects. And for it to be made into a film, it was the craziest thing. I was just like, this is like, there's no way you could do it properly. And they couldn't do it properly. And they had to cut a lot of stuff out. And it was already a long enough production. And I remember people watching at the time and they told me, like, yeah, this thing was weird. It was so hard to follow. But during the 70s, you had a lot of weird sci-fi things. This was just a bigger budget version of those. And that's why people watched it who didn't know Dune. And the writers of people who liked books at the time were like, oh, this is impressive to even be made, let alone be watched. So yeah, no, Dune has its own little weird place amongst all the other Ray Bradburys and Asimovs and all those fun-loving guys who wrote really good stuff. And for whatever reason, Hollywood kept doing this one. But we do have we do have some Asimov. We do have some Banks. We got.
Well, most others are. They come to a more profound message of what things are bad. Dune doesn't really do that. Dune bumbles around, and once you know what Herbert was really writing about, it sullies the whole thing.
In a way, yeah. It's not the most creative thing.
Yeah, once you realize that he was writing a pro-eugenics message, it gets.
That's a part of it, yeah. It's weird. It is a weird story. That's why people, when you actually think about it, when you read it, you're like, okay, I like a lot of this stuff, but a lot of it's like, you didn't have to do half of this, like all the wars going on with the houses and the Bene Gesserit wars and all the long-standing influences. You're like, okay, this is not helping anyone. Yeah. It's just there because he wanted it. So
and maybe I'm spoiled is probably the wrong word, but grew up in a time where there were so many great stories already that Dune was easier to follow, probably for me in my time, than it was for people in the 70s when it came out.
Oh, yeah. Even the Russian authors looked at that and went, yeah, no, not for me. not my flavor of sci-fi. But I'm glad it exists.
He was writing about very different things. The Russian authors usually had a point. Dune doesn't really have a point, because the point it would have gotten to would have needed Frank Herbert to not have had whatever kind of stroke he had in the early 80s,
yeah,
and keep writing himself.
That changes a lot of things when you're a writer. So yeah. Anyway, I like this video. He's just listing movies that have done well this year.
Not Twisters. It's Twisters. Now look, I don't mean to come off as one-sided and biased in this video. I am, but I don't mean to come off that way. If it seems like I've been overly critical of liberal viewpoints being injected into works of art, well, those are the examples available. For every my panda, my choice, there is not a panda's a panda, no matter how small, because Hollywood is overwhelmingly liberal. So
none about that is liberal, it's socialist. They use the word liberal in America. That's what you need to get away with. That is part of the newspeak trick. You will not get anyone being able to fight for liberties without being a libertarian, as long as you let the socialists use the word liberal.
I remember,
they are not liberal. When they are in power, you lose liberties. You lose your constitutional amendments when you have them in power, for fuck's sake.
I like there was a meme a few days ago that Elon Musk shared. And it shows the three people, one's on the left, one in the moderate, and one's on the right. And it shows three timelines. And on all timelines, the person on the left keeps moving to the left further and further, so that the person in the middle, and the people in the middle and the people on the right are all aligned exactly the same on all three timelines. And the midpoint gets pushed further to the left as well as the timelines keep going. And the guy on the left is screaming, "You're a Nazi," because the midpoint has been pushed so far that the moderates are now right wing. Because
it's a good illustration of the Overton window.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
How it manifests.
And that's a great way of expressing what's going on in the past. Jeez, now it's been
70 years.
Well, that's a bit too long. I would say 2000. Maybe 2008. That's when things started.
That's when you started noticing.
Right. Well, people are waking up and going, "Wait a second, what the hell's with all this government programs we don't need anymore? Why are we doing all those things with immigration? Why is Canada giving assisted suicide? Like, what is happening in this country?" So yeah, no, people are finally taking notice. I hope. Like, we've had our premier in our province. Look at the city of Toronto and say, why are there bike lanes on the major 3 streets, cutting down all the lanes? We got to get rid of that. He's like, yeah, thank you, sir. Finally, someone is putting their foot down with the city planners doing this nonsense, cutting off traffic to, I don't know if you guys have ever traveled through Toronto. It is horrible. You cannot get anywhere in a car. So,
they're destroying the public, any sort of traffic. In New Zealand, in Auckland, they now said, what was it, 20 for the next 6 or 20 months? I have to look it up. A friend just posted it before the cast started. That the trains won't be running for the next over a year or something. And the infrastructure is so neglected that even their water pipes are losing 15 million liters a year or a month or some insane number.
Yeah.
Because, and they only had the left in charge all the time, they neglect the infrastructure, they put all the money into their own pockets. And then you have no infrastructure. And that's how you get humanity to die out, because you have parasites that just take everything away that they should be caring for. Well, that's corruption.
It's so bad in Toronto. We have a new train being built between Montreal and Toronto. As well, our premier recommended digging a tunnel underneath one of the major highways, which would cost like, I don't know, $30 billion or whatever the hell it is, just to have a secondary form of transport to get into the city. It's just so, there's so much congestion, and we've been living with this for, I mean, there's so many broken systems in our city with the light rail, because the liberals love the light rail. I don't know why. And they've been tearing up the streets. So if you thought one lane was bad, imagine no lanes. Well, the construction goes on for another 3 major roads have been destroyed by light rail. So we have all this congestion, nowhere to go.
See, that's why I always advocated for spider walkers.
What? Spider walkers?
Yeah, spider walkers. If you have spider walkers, your roads need to be in that good of a condition.
Oh my God. All right. Well, we're changing the topic here just because it's fun, but this is a good video. I'm enjoying it.
In the words of Adam Lambert, what do you want from me? But in the interest of fairness, let's take a look at this pile of garbage from the right side of the aisle, entitled The New Norm.
Yeah.
Hey, pronoun, this bud's for you.
Offensive. Okay, I think that's quite enough of that. Putting
that is mildly funny, at least.
Aside that this sounds like it was written by an AI trained exclusively on anti-woke Facebook memes, and the fact that
It probably was. to be fair, it probably was.
Was that a laugh track? I couldn't even hear it, but I think it was a laugh track after he made the joke.
I filtered them out.
Yeah.
I've seen too many American sitcoms. I don't hear them anymore.
Is the purpose of this to be a giant joke, like just to be a big stupid pile of crap? Is that the point? I have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, it's just all this cartoon is to get politically back at the left wing propaganda. It's just it's counter propaganda.
That's weird.
And the thing with it is that all it needs to do is mock the excessive stupidity of the left-wing propaganda. It doesn't even need to do anything on its own. It doesn't need to shield Jesus or anything. It just needs to show that the pronoun stuff is stupid, the masks are stupid, and all this other stuff is stupid. Because it is.
All right, here is Mr. Frog Jupiter. Thank you, sir, for the 5. With the God Emperor's return, will Hollywood calm down or double down? Also, did you hear about Vegan Gains' vegan cat dying?
Oh my god.
Who's Vegan Gains?
Why is Vegan Gains is one of these idiotic vegan activist YouTubers who think that all animals also have to eat vegan, which they can't, because there are such things as carnivores. They have very short intestines, like dogs, which is why they have to eat meat. They cannot process enough energy and nutrients out of vegetables. Cats as well. Why is Vegan Gains still not behind bars for animal abuse?
Well,
please, yes.
If you guys know anything about nutrition, the protein numero uno, fat number 2, and carbohydrates don't even bother. You don't need them.
And look, I have vegan friends, and when that are on the sane side, they're not these crap vegans. They're not the fashion vegans. But they're the old school types that are aware that when they eat vegan, they will lack something. And because they don't do it for health, they don't do it to save the planet, they do it out of philosophical reasons. They're usually leaning towards Buddhism or come from Buddhism in some form or another. And the idea behind that is simply to reduce suffering in the world. It's not about animals specifically, but in general.
Yeah, it's
and
part of religion.
That's all.
Yeah.
That's all. And they, one of them, he had a dog for 12 years that he loved very much, and he was always aware that he's a dog. He has to eat meat. That's it.
Yeah.
So he got meat to eat.
Nothing wrong with trying veganism, but don't go on it too long. I've seen a lot
you can't force it on others, and you need to check your blood works. Here in the West, we do not have all of the foodstuffs available that are available in India, where you have way more things that contain B12 or alternative protein sources, for example.
Yeah, Hinduism is a huge vegan as well as vegetarian. There's levels of it. You don't have to go all the way, but
they don't really have a distinction. The whole distinction of vegetarianism and veganism is a whole Western thing.
Okay.
Because it's either you don't eat the animals for philosophical reasons, or you don't. That's it.
All right.
There's nothing else.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into nutrition, even though we can talk about it for a while because it's a totally different topic. Okay.
Yeah. What about the Hollywood question?
As a lab, for absolutely no reason at all, this shit is not remotely the solution to the woke mind virus. If you believe that good art is being ruined by the other side of the political aisle, the correct response is to make good art yourself, not to do the exact same thing you've been complaining about for a decade.
But it's what frustrated people do who know nothing else, and it is at least a start. You could say it's an icebreaker.
It's
somebody does something, even if it is not up to your standards, but that allows better equipped people to get their courage together to make something of their own that is of better quality in that vein.
You could make the argument that someone who is not good at making art but is motivated to try and makes that, whatever he showed us, a thing. It's like, okay, yeah, it didn't work very well. You're right. It's a mirror of the same thing, just not as horrible. So, is it digestible?
It's like the guy who gets punched in the face for 10 years by his bully, finally punching back once.
And he's not very good at it, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, and while sure, you could say that this is political satire, but satire is supposed to be funny, and thus not exactly the...
This is a fine argument because he's like, I'm a writer, I know what I'm talking about, this sucks. Like, I agree, it does suck, and you could do better, and that's why he's strong about it. If he didn't know any better, he'd be saying, it still sucks, but I don't know why. So, I like this guy. Like, he's being very honest and very cognizant of what's happening.
Same thing as a giant beloved franchise becoming politically divisive. I have to ask, how is this helping? This garbage is clearly created by people who think a certain way, for people who think a certain way. If it ever actually gets generated, it will only be watched by people with the exact same mindset of the main character of that trailer.
Which is okay, if it is enough to be self-sustaining, because what that is a niche audience. To make something for a niche audience that can sustain a thing is completely justified. Look at EVE Online. It has 30,000 people constantly since launch. That's a niche audience, but it's a very dedicated one.
Do you like mining and...
Excel sheets.
Automated fight. I don't know what the hell the fighting is called, but it's so funny to watch. Like, what? That's fighting? Okay.
Well, if thinking of how space fights might actually work, which is from very far away, not actually being able to see the enemy, but only radar blips. Yeah, it's not that far away from how it would be.
If you find that fun, I mean, good for you, I guess. But very different game that you were expecting it to be.
Look, it's like what do you call in English the game where you both have ships but you don't see where and you try to hit them with bombs?
Is it Battleship?
Oh, you call it Battleship. We call it sinking the ships.
Yeah.
But so imagine it's like submarine fighting, but instead it's in space, and that's how it works. You don't really know. Did we hit the enemy? Didn't we? I don't know. There's a blip. Don't make a sound.
Yeah, I know. It's funny.
And nothing accomplished.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
As I've said before, create worlds and characters in order to tell a story, not to prove a point. Have a personal philosophy. Determine how that philosophy can be shown through the story's themes. Figure out how to have characters live out those themes. Create meaningful and sensible
I would not have the God of War Norse games in the line of the good examples.
Hell no.
character arcs, and so on and so forth. If you do want to convert people to your way of thinking and you are a writer or director, the best way to do that is to tell a good story, to provoke admiration by producing high-quality works of art which depict your philosophy in poignant and thought-provoking ways. Even if I don't agree with your worldview at every turn, I will most certainly respect the fact that you decided to show it to me through characters and a world that you created, instead of dropping in disjointed tidbits of it in a way that jar me right out of the story you're allegedly trying to tell.
You're not all boys. So?
I mean, there are a great many issues about which I am deeply passionate, and which I believe to be of great moral importance, and yet you don't hear me say things like, my expectations for this show were high, but not as high as the tariffs on potatoes, because that's not what this channel is. That's not what you are here for. If I fall prey to that temptation to use my platform to grandstand about social affairs unrelated to the story, character, or theme which I am discussing that week, then I will break the implicit trust between content creator and viewer. The trust that you have in me, hopefully, to deliver.
We don't have a trust in Norse Kratos. Sorry.
Thoughtful analyses of a given narrative, arc, or trend within the storytelling industry. If you wanted to hear my political opinions, you would be subscribed to my politics channel. In the same vein, if you, a creative in Hollywood, want to talk about political issue X, make a movie about it. Could be a documentary, could be a political comedy, could be whatever. But be...
Yeah, and when they do, they get Rotten Tomatoes. Isn't that funny? I find it funny.
It's as if people don't want that crap.
It's like anytime they make something that is not hijacking an established brand.
Yeah, what was that?
It flops completely.
What was that joke with Bill Burr about like all those slavery movies or whatever black scenarios? It's like, wow, those are really well done movies. I don't watch them. Do you watch them? Like, his black friends are like, no, I thought they were for you. no one watches these things.
Be honest about what that film is. I don't imagine most people complained about politics in movies when Vice premiered, because of course a film about a former vice president is going to include politics. When we get down to the core of the issue, it really is at least mostly about honesty. When Hollywood writers sneak in these jarring, ill-fitting lines or story beats that have political or social undertones, it jolts the audience out of their immersion and evokes a negative reaction. Perhaps even...
Yes, I'm giving you the very word that you're looking for all this time, and that is agitprop. Agitprop is a portmanteau made from agitation and propaganda, which is what the very ideology that does all of this crap in the movies and in the video games is doing. It's the same ideology that came up with that term. One who came up with it was a certain Mr. Lenin, who ran the Soviet Union and right into the ground.
I like the current disparity in the news and what's happening with the election. The feedback from the left-leaning news websites and organizations, they're like, oh, we got to watch out for our children. We got to look out for the coming dictatorship. We might want to think about moving. Like all this bizarre fear-mongering because there's nothing else for them to say aside from they lost. And it's like, okay, guys, just calm down. All those, like I was watching TV with my dad and mom. We were, I don't know, watching, what is it, Wheel of Fortune? I don't know what they watch in the evenings. So watching these.
That still exists?
Oh yeah, they what's his name? Pat Sajak just retired this year apparently. So, but Vanna White's still there, amazingly. Anyway, I was watching political campaign ads from the Harris campaign. They were saying like Trump is going to ban abortion like federally. I'm like, no, he's not. He never said that. They specifically got rid of that rule of Roe v. Wade, or not him personally, but the Supreme Court did.
One of the big problems of American election campaigning is that they're allowed to blatantly lie about their opponents.
It was crazy this month, like or last month rather. I was watching like whatever programs, like every commercial break on every American channel. I'd say about 80% of them were all of the Democrats party, whatever. I don't know what that is exactly, but it was just constant. Are you scared of your children growing up in a world blah blah blah? And you're like, he's a president. What is he going to do? Like, not go to war, lower taxes, make peace with everyone. Like just what he did like 8 years ago. Just the same as that, only more. It's like that's all he's going to do. He's not like going to go into your family and change how your 401k works. And he's definitely not going to screw over the energy sector anymore. It's one thing I know he's going to fix. So
he does want to take certain taxes away and instead impose tariffs, which is all fine by me. Let's do that over here too, please. And Elon is pushing for get rid of all subsidies. I like that.
There are lots of interesting things that could happen in the next few months, and one of the ideas was eliminating the income tax. And I was like, "Are you serious? Is that going to happen?" But that was a brainstorm event during an interview last month, and I was like, if that happens, all the libertarians are going to go nuts. They're just going to go crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Anyway, I would just move to the States. I just pick a state, I'd go there. I just go.
Yeah, I should have moved, I guess.
Find any job. It doesn't matter. Every dollar you make is like, that would be incredible. Anyway.
For those who agree with said messaging, but who care enough about their philosophy or worldview to be annoyed by it being presented in this clumsy, ham-fisted manner. The first few times you do it, you'll probably avoid any long-term backlash, but if you insist on continuing down this path, eventually you'll arrive where the MCU did last year, with a movie whose main draw was the identities of its 3 leads, directed by someone who is pretty honest about being an activist filmmaker. But
Oh, that came out?
Yes, it did.
I thought that was to come out.
No, it
It
came out.
Yeah, it did.
That I remember.
Okay.
And of course, and naturally, it's a failure.
So, oh yeah, see, that's my that's where you missed Wendy, I missed this.
Wendy? What the hell? Like, what is
You didn't know about that?
I had no idea.
These multi hundreds of millions of dollars productions, and there's like
Marvel.
nobody notices that it happened.
Marvel is gigantic. I don't know who produced Wendy. Was that Disney as well? Is there?
Has to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not as big as the MCU. Like, come on.
Yeah, but the amount of money they pump into their movies.
Yeah, I know.
You know, the
Audiences
I think it
didn't
was in the
want
era of
said
all these
activism,
bad
at
live
least
action
not
things.
the audiences of the MCU. Basically, the Marvels was the intersectional equivalent of Christian movies. It was open and honest about who it was for.
God's not dead. Oh my God.
Yeah,
and
but
thus was
thank you for bringing that up.
limited in its audience. Whether you agree or disagree with the message of such films, secular or religious, you cannot.
The difference is that the Christian movies don't have that kind of backing behind them, and I don't care about flopping hard.
Yeah,
and they at least know, and they also at least know what they are.
I actually know a few of them, not because I watch them, because they're on the women's television network, and I'll sometimes sit down with my mom, ask her what she's watching. It's always some sort of Hallmark style romance. Sometimes there's some mysticism with the Christianity or Christmas or something like that, Christmas miracle stuff. And it's not high budget. Yeah, it's very low budget, but it's not like a stupid film. It's just a bunch of people trying to fall in love, and circumstances don't work out, and all of a sudden there's a guardian angel or there's some miracle that happens and everyone gets together. And it's cute. It's a dumb film, but they're cute. They're all the same. They're all like, there's some marriage or someone hooks up at the end. And I get that. That's basically Shakespeare, but...
we had something similar, but not Christian. We called Homeland movies. That was mainly watched by the post-war generation. Or the women who survived the war.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about the rural places, the villages, and there's some little plot happening there, and it's nice weather, and it's pastures, or it's fluffy snow, and you have these little family stories happening. There may be a little romance, and it's just nice. And I guess this is the American equivalent to that.
All right, almost done.
Deny that, by and large, fans of fantasy, sci-fi, and superhero genres aren't interested in hearing a homily in the theater. We want to be inspired by the heroism of the protagonists. We want to see them struggle, falter, and even fall, so we can watch them get back up again. We want fearsome villains who, however understandable they may or may not be, are not painted as justifiable in their actions. And we want uplifting and inventive stories told by people who care more about telling those stories than they do about piling up purposeless political points.
Boom. The end.
Very nice.
It's that simple.
Yeah, and that's why I always brought up the Christian moms of the 80s and 90s. Had they taken over Hollywood, they wouldn't make Christian movies and Christian games. They would make it like the crazy left has been doing. They would put Jesus into Warhammer 40K and Star Wars and Star Trek and all these other things.
Yeah,
that wouldn't be great.
We're waiting on the next news from our Superman to see what he's doing with the 40K universe. So I think Henry's got.
I think 40K is the Amazon 40K thing is done. That's not gonna happen.
Oh, really?
Because Amazon last I heard was that's not gonna happen because Cavill doesn't want it broken.
Oh, you're kidding? Really? I thought he was really inside of it and like figuring stuff out.
Yeah, but I mean, they already have destroyed his favorite army.
Oh, you mean the actual creators of the lore changed the?
Yeah, they had activists working within Games Workshop. Games Workshop has basically taken over a long time ago.
Oh.
And the whole negotiation process, Amazon allegedly wanted, because they always have to have their female power characters, wanted to put in a female custodes, and that can't be. But one of the social media idiots at Games Workshop then, without having had a green light, allegedly, pushed out a message about female custodes having always been a thing, which is blatantly untrue. It completely contradicts the law. And then Games Workshop kind of was in a jiffy because everybody was upset, but they doubled down. They wrote it in the codex, and now they have an animation where they have that character in there, and it's just all stupid. And I have not bought a single Warhammer product since.
That's too bad. Even one of my favorite game studios, Alcat, made a Rogue Trader turn-based game I never got into. Something about it didn't look good. I don't know what, because I don't know 40K very well. But if it's a turn-based game, I know it's going to be very slow-paced and no voice acting, or there will be some voice acting, but not. You know how Planescape Torment did voice acting only in key moments or certain times. So yeah,
but that was because back in the day, Planescape was in a time when that was super expensive and you had an insane amount of text.
Yeah.
You couldn't voice act all of that. We wouldn't even have had the space on the disc.
Anyway, that was a great video. This guy seems like a smart fellow. Very, very, for even 16 minutes, that was pretty efficient of him to get all that in.
Yeah.
So.
Thanks for the suggestion. That was great.
There's like 2 memes if you want to look at those quick.
They were from 5 days ago. I tried to look at them. I'm like,
No, there's 2 from there's 2 for today's cast.
I mean, maybe the 3 was an 8. Maybe I was leaning too far away from the screen there. Let me try again. Oh, it is an 8. Yeah, I was wrong. Okay, here we go.
Just 2, but yeah.
Nobody. Oblivion NPCs when they enter dialogue. Boom.
Oblivion, if I remember correctly, Fallout 3 and New Vegas as well.
Just Bethesda games.
Just Bethesda games of that era. I think Skyrim was the one that stopped doing that.
That's great.
It's the same. You go into the conversation the same way, but there's no zoom in Skyrim.
Yeah, dude, you didn't have to do that, man.
And then the other one, animals eat other animals. It's nature. No, it isn't. We taught a lion to eat tofu. And the skinny ass lion.
Yeah.
Doesn't he die in that scene?
I think he does.
Or is he just coughing? I think he was coughing.
I think at least the cough, yeah.
Well, we're not going to get into a stream about nutrition. That's that'll be a while. Talk about fat and types of fat and proteins, types of proteins.
That would fall under food stream, which you guys have done before.
But I did not talk about nutrition. I talked about beer and cheese and God knows what else.
Fair.
Yeah, but it's so strange that this is such a food diversion streamcast show thing that we didn't talk about Nikocado avocado.
I don't really care for avocados, so I probably wouldn't talk about it.
I mean, he did lose the weight, so.
Oh, you don't even know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
he was super fat. He was super fat. His whole thing was being a complete crazy idiot, and just eating insane amounts of food.
Yeah.
And then he just turned up, and everybody told him he needs to lose weight or he dies.
Yeah.
And then one day he just uploaded a video where he was thin.
Wow.
Out of the blue.
Turns out,
Kinga, go on.
Yeah, it turns out that him being that big was just a massive troll because all he did was record a whole bunch of content at once when he was that big, and then up to now he's been losing that weight.
He had pre-recorded material for 2 years.
Wow.
And just uploaded that while he was actually losing weight.
That's funny. Well,
that's amazing.
That's great. I'm glad he's did his thing and he's alive, because there was that scary meme of the woman saying,
all the fat activists are dying.
Are dead. That's terrifying. That's ridiculous.
No, it's not terrifying if you want them. If you want them, it's Schadenfreude.
It's just sad to see.
Schadenfreude doesn't actually need to be happy. It's just told you so.
Yeah. All right. Well, guys, that was really quick for a 60-minute video. We agreed with just about everything he said. That's amazing.
Except with showing Ragnarok in certain points, but other than that,
he probably liked the drama, not necessarily the rest of the story.
At this point, I'm just like agree to disagree with those two games.
Right. Yeah.
Otherwise, good video.
Wait. I would say the following: he cut so fast, and I tried to keep attention. It seemed as if every cut where the scene changed also corresponded to whatever word he used. So we would actually have to check whether he always used it in with a positive word associated, or positive stream of words, or not. But I think he used it for positives, and that I would disagree with. Because this man is paying attention.
Yeah,
I like that.
The only thing he tried to make that, I think it was a joke, and the two words we didn't know what the heck he said, and I thought it was trans something, but I don't even know what the word was. And the other one, Netflix, I can't recall. So yeah.
I think from the context I can guess where the pun was aimed at, but I still don't know the words.
Yeah.
It was about yet different directions that you could also be in.
And he said it so quickly, and it was just the off the cuff sort of thing, and it cut really quickly to something else, and you're like, what? And that, other than that, perfect. Everything else was great. All the right things. Great clips. Great scenes from movies I love, and some game stuff in there as well. Plus, again, guys, go watch. I don't know when it's coming out, but it should be. Is it Arcane or Arcanum? What's it called?
It would be Arcane.
The Arcane, the season 2, yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna check that out tonight, and hopefully you guys will too. I heard it's supposed to be a good series.
Yeah, so. and check out this guy's channel.
For sure. Mr. Samwise, Master Samwise. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for your time and the suggestion. We'll be keeping it going as we can. Enjoy your cool November. It's getting kind of cool out there. Windy for sure. So keep warm. All right. Have a great one. Good night.